Welcome to Fantasy Legends, my name's Scott and today we'll be discussing one of the races from Final Fantasy IV, the Lunarians. Before I get into it, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, it really does help me out. Now let's get on with the video. Lunarians, as their name suggests, are from the moon. They're physically almost identical to humans. The only way you can really tell the difference between the two is that they have lighter hair. Another thing that distinctly separates the two races in Final Fantasy IV is the fact that the Lunarians are much more technologically advanced in their knowledge of the world and of technology. Lunarians don't go just by one name. In fact, we hear a couple in the game. We also hear them called the Moonfolk and the Moonfarer. The thing that separates them from the humans in the game is the fact that they are really naturally talented in magic. In fact, most of them that we get to see know the ultimate magic, which is Meteor. We don't get to learn too much about the history of the Lunarians before the game's events. However, we do learn a couple of things, and that is that their planet was between Mars and Jupiter originally. When they discovered that their home planet was about to be destroyed, they decided to go to Earth. They then discovered the humans, still in the process of evolution, much more behind the Lunarians, and found that the two races could never coexist this way. Due to this, the majority of the Lunarians decided to wait the day that the humans would be able to live with them in peace, rather than causing war and strife between the two races. To this end, they went to the core of the moon to sleep, while one of them, Fusoya, stood guard over them. As I said previously, most of the Lunarians were content to sleep and wait until the humans were ready to coexist with the Lunarians together in peace. However, Zemus believed that they should use the giant of Babil to destroy humanity and thus rule the world. Now, Zemus was the most powerful of the Lunarians. This made his views very dangerous. So, in order to combat this, Fusoya, not only did he guard the other Lunarians while they slept, but he also sealed Zemus away, forcing him into a sleep. However, Zemus's power was so strong, it didn't really contain him. It contained his body, his physical body, in terms of him not being able to physically attack Earth or its inhabitants. However, his psychic abilities were, while muted, were not completely dampened by the effects of the forced sleep. Tactical error from Fusoya and the rest of the Lunarians actually led to most of the events in Final Fantasy IV, with the fact that Gorbez was mainly mind-controlled by Zemus all along. The party finally defeat Zemus and Zeromus from controlling the Earth. They decide that the Earth would be much better off without the Lunarians' interference, so they decide to move their moon outside of the Earth's orbit, heading to parts unknown in the galaxy. You get to see the Lunarians, however, in a muted sense, in the Final Fantasy IV, the After Years, as well as Final Fantasy, the Four Heroes of Light. However, their part in the story is not as big as it is in Final Fantasy IV. You could argue that Gorbez and Zeromus being in the After Years, that they do still obviously have an impact on the story. For my final bit of information about the Lunarians, I thought I would touch on a little theory that a lot of people have about the Lunarians and their home planet. A lot of people think that the developers designed it after the asteroid belt, which is obviously between Mars and Jupiter. So this would then bring in line the story. It's quite an interesting one to think about, to be honest. There you have it, the Lunarians. Would you like to see them in a future Final Fantasy? They are quite an interesting race, even though they are quite similar to humans in a lot of aspects. They still had enough variety and diversity to keep us interested. Please let me know what you thought of them in the comments down below. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for listening.